Good evening and welcome to your latest installment of the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. I'm your host, Matt Harrelson, alongside with me, Ross regular Jeremy McKenzie. And just a little bit, we're going to have our other Ross regular, Russell Parker, joining the desk. But in the meantime, of course, Raider football was this past Friday. It was homecoming night. It was a huge, huge victory for the Richmond Raiders, pretty much dismantling Hoke County Bucks 53-0 on homecoming.
Yes.
And we're going to get into the recap, all the stats and all that. But in the meantime, we do have an exclusive interview that we had with head coach Brian Till right after the game.
They did phenomenal. I mean, we really scored really fast early on. We had planned on that double pass all year. I mean, not all year, but all week. We talked about it all year, and I just thought it was the right time to kind of come out and try and, the distractions and stuff we worry about. So we come out and do those kind of things to get our guys going in a hurry, and so it worked out great for Noah. Jaheim busted some runs, some big runs, made it look real easy. The offensive line was blocking well for him. So. Really happy with that. Happy to stops. Defense guys didn't play a lot of snaps tonight.
Right.
They ought to be pretty doggone fresh come Monday.
Yeah. So I know the defense obviously played great tonight, but it seems like this is the third shutout out of the last 4 games, I believe it is. How are they able to do that?
I think the other team doesn't score. No, that's the biggest thing. I mean, the guys are doing a good job on their assignments. I mean, and there's an energy that's there no matter what. Who's out there, whatever. Like we said, we've had some injuries. Guys jump in. They're really energetic with what they're doing, flying around, but they understand the scheme of defense. Several times tonight on motions and things, with the stunt we had called, it could have really messed us up. Early in the year, it might have. They've grown up so much to understand how to check that stunt, check out of it, check somebody else into another stunt, which still gives us the pressure we want. So, they're really able to understand the defense right now, and maturity there is what's probably having as much to do with that as anything.
And then coming up next week, you guys are going to be facing Lumberton at their house. What do you guys need to do to get ready this week?
We'll watch film and see and prepare on them. I mean, the biggest thing is they don't play on Monday, so we may get film a little later, stuff like that. So we're going to do everything we can to get some film on them. Maybe prepare off of last year's film some. It's tough because I got a new head coach.
Okay.
So, trying to get that squared away and us really talk to maybe some other guys around the conference, or maybe some, I don't know, we got to figure out something to get some idea of what they can do, and then prepare for practice on Monday.
All right, and then one last question for you. It's homecoming. What does Raider pride mean to you?
Oh, man, Raider pride is our assistant coaches coming in. And tonight for devotion, they came in and they all talked to our kids about what their time meant here. They all had very distinct memories for our kids, and they're able to pass that down to our kids. And we put that chain on there. Raider pride is what goes back and how we link to it and how it just stays here and stays here and stays here. And it's just something really special to be a part of.
So there were a ton of highlights there, and actually Russell got the majority of those, what seemed like in the first quarter, at least the first half, 53-0. Obviously a lot of scores on the Raiders side. I know there's a lot to choose from, but what impressed you the most from Friday's victory?
I think for one thing is consistency. They're very consistent on both sides of the ball. I think Caleb Hood got the job done, throwing to different receivers, especially to Preston Coker and the Dalton Stroman and Jaden Covington, who pretty much ran the ball effective, and the defense took care of business.
Yeah, Jaheim Covington had a couple of huge runs, especially one that we were standing on the sideline that caught my eyes when he ran into a couple of their defenders, did a spin move, and ended up running in for a touchdown. That was definitely one that deserved to be on the highlight reel. Now, a couple of stats here. This was the Raiders' 5th straight win. This was actually the longest winning streak during head coach Brian Till's tenure, and it's the program's longest stretch of wins since collecting 6 in a row during the 2015 regular season from September 18th to October 30th back in 2015. So how are the Raiders able to win these 5 games in a row, in your opinion?
Like I said, for one, it's consistency. And also they've been very productive, not only on offense and defense, special teams doing it well, but I think the team as a unit is coming together, even after the loss to Wake Forest, and even when they beat it Butler. I think the down the stretch is going to give them some motivation anyway as they continue to dominate during conference play. I see with Lumberton they'll do well, even with Scotland going to do well.
Yeah,
and Purnell Sweat.
And we'll get to Lumberton here in just a second, but this was Richmond and Hoke's 43rd all-time meeting. So they've obviously been playing these guys for a long time. Of course, we've been in the same conference here for a while. The Raiders on the season are 6-1 overall, 3-0 in the SAC. They basically own this series. There's only had one loss to the Bucks dating back to 1972. So the Bucks right now 0-7, 0-3 in the SEC. They haven't won a game in 2 years. Was this a showing of how bad the Hoke County Bucks are, or how good Richmond is, or a combination of the two?
I think it's both.
Yeah. So after losing to number 1 Wake Forest earlier in this year back in August, Richmond's been clicking on all cylinders. So this was a 53-point blowout. It was Richmond's third shutout of the season. We mentioned that with Coach Till. Of the 8 total touchdowns scored, the defense actually had one of those. Of course, there was also a pick six that got brought back. But as far as defense, what are these guys doing to be able to shut out everybody, it seems like?
I seen it's for the defense. I seen it finally, which I've been saying for a while, is as long as you can stop the run and defend the pass, you'll do fine. You can dominate on third downs, and you should get your ball back for first and 10. I think it really for what Coach Till has done with this program, defensive side of the ball, I think it's working well for them. They stopping the run, they defending the pass real well, and coverage has been awesome.
So, offensively, the Raiders scored 46 first-half points against Hook. The final score ended up, of course, being 53-0. So, obviously, the vast majority of the points came in the first half. There was a running clock in the second half. This was a scenario where we probably could have hung 100 points up on Hook if we wanted to. Of course, we took it easy there in the second half. But this was the most in the opening 2 quarters since scoring 48 against Douglas Byrd High School back in 2016. That was a 62-0 win. It was also the 4th time in the last 5 meetings that the Raiders have put up 50 or more points against the Bucks. So we definitely have Hoke County's number when it comes to football. Yeah. So Richmond handed the Bucks their 20th straight loss. They scored on 7 of their 9 total possessions of the night, including its first 6 of the ballgame. They scored 3 touchdowns on their first 4 possessions of the game. So obviously they came out swinging. So let's look towards Lumberton. We've got Lumberton on the road coming up. Lumberton actually had a game this past Monday. I think this was due to Hurricane Florence. It was one they had to make up. They ended up losing to Pinecrest 26-14. So that wasn't a blowout by any means. But what do you foresee against Lumberton this week?
I practice that count.
Okay. All right.
That's all I'm going to see, because I think it's going to be another game where Richmond going to come out on fire with that same motivation, same driven, and continue to dominate on both sides of the ball, even on special teams. I see this as a scenario where Lumberton is really going to get their butts whooped. Really, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. Do you predict another shutout, maybe?
I think it's going to be another shutout, maybe I give about 48-0.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obviously we're in a good spot with football when we're wondering not if they're going to win, but if we're going to shut them out or not. So obviously, I'm with you. I'd love to see us go up 48-0. Obviously, I think we're better than Pinecrest. Pinecrest allowed Lumberton to score 14. I don't think they get anywhere.
Sorry for them.
Yeah, I don't think that that Lumberton's going to get anywhere close to that. But we'll have to wait and see. So, looking forward to that. Now, moving forward after Lumberton, we still got a couple more games. Of course, Scotland's the big game everybody's talking about still. Scotland's kind of down this year, though, aren't they?
Yeah, Scott, I think due to the, for one, Zamir White has, left due to graduation. Even with their quarterback and their running back came right after Zamir White, it went down. I think the Scotland team just went completely downhill. I think their season is pretty much done. And that's like, I put them in a mindset where they got to start from scratch, rebuild, and let's see what you got.
Yeah, and obviously it's tough to compare teams head-to-head, but Scotland this past or week before last played the same Hoke County team that we just dismembered, and Hoke took them to overtime.
Yeah.
Now this was at Hoke. It was their homecoming week, but nonetheless, if you're comparing it that way, I think Richmond will have no problem with Scotland. Of course, that game's going to be at home. But we'll worry about Scotland when we get to it. Of course, we've got Lumberton. That's going to be this week on the road at 7:30 tomorrow night. So Lumberton not too far away. Hope everybody in the green and gold will head up to Lumberton. Make sure to show that Raider pride when the Raiders hopefully pick up their 6th straight win and get another SAC victory. So
yes.
And that's going to do it for Raider Talk. Of course, we will continue our coverage with the Richmond Raiders throughout the season on our way to a hopeful state championship. Of course, it's a year ending in 8, so everybody's anticipating another state championship in 2018. When we come back from break, we've got more college football talk, of course, NFL as well, and much, much more when we return to the RO Sports Show. Hayden Construction has 2 new homes under construction at 2 distinct locations. 125 Crystal Court in Carolina Hills and on Robberdale School Road. Both feature incredible floor plans and distinct features inside and out. Hayden Construction, quality, value, and beauty. Call Jamie Smart at 910-331-5811 or Nicole Hayden at 910-995-0717 today to schedule an appointment. Exit Realty, making dreams a reality.
At Richmond County Hospice, we strive to provide high-quality care to our patients and their families. Whether it's the incredible hospitality at the Haven House or from the comfort of your own home, you can count on hospice to be there for you. We also offer monthly grief support groups, and our chaplain will be there to hold your hand in prayer. Through our amazing staff and our volunteers, hospice has made difficult times easier for our community. Call the number on your screen if you feel that you or your loved one may benefit from our services. Richmond County Hospice. Peace, comfort, dignity.
Welcome back to the RO Sports Show. As always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Russell Parker joining us on the desk, another one of our Ross regulars. Guys, let's hit the gridiron on the college level. So let's take a look at last week's picks and get right into it.
Let's take a look at those.
Yeah, let's do it because we all did terrible. So starting with Georgia LSU. Jeremy, both of us took the Bulldogs. Russell, you had LSU at home, but Georgia coming in at number 2. We both thought they were going to win. Obviously, LSU got the upset, though.
They did. I told you guys beforehand, this is a game that LSU was going to win. And I was very confident in that, and it proved Saturday why they were so dominant. They dominated Georgia overall.
Well, let me ask you this. Is this more of a thing where LSU's that good because they were coming off a loss of their own, or is Georgia a little overrated?
I think Georgia might be just a little bit overrated, but I think a lot has to do with LSU still being a top team themselves this season. They just happened to have a bad loss last week, and that probably fired them up so bad that, hey, we're going to go in here hard and hit Georgia where it hurts, and they did it.
All right, so let me ask both of you guys this. Georgia now has a loss on their resume. Is Georgia done?
No.
All right, so you guys think they still have a shot to get back in it?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's going to be in the SEC Championship, whether it's Alabama or LSU in that game. It's going to be one of those two. If they win that game, they're in. If they lose, obviously they're out.
I agree 100%. If Georgia wins out the rest and ends up winning the SEC, I think you pretty much have to put them in one loss or not, right?
I mean, they haven't lost in the East Division yet. LSU's in the West
Right.
Division, so as far as that goes, Georgia's good still.
Still a conference loss, though,
Right.
technically.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. Let's take a look at the Pac-12 big game this week. Washington versus Oregon. We all three took the Huskies, and we were all three wrong. I'm kind of surprised you didn't take the Ducks, because you've been riding that bandwagon all year.
I sure have, but I was looking at it from a standpoint. That was like an upset alert. I wanted to see the Huskies beat the Ducks.
Yeah, although, to be honest with you, if Washington would have won, that wouldn't have been an upset. But Washington now, talking about if Georgia's done, Washington has to be done, right? They've now got 2 losses, even though only one's in conference. Are the Huskies done?
Yeah, they've got to be done. With the way that Auburn's playing this season, that loss has not helped
Doesn't
them.
look as good.
Yeah, no, they probably get a bowl game for it.
Oh, I absolutely get a bowl game. But let me ask you guys this, because we do have another Pac-12 game to look at from last week. But is the Pac-12 done now? Because they were kind of holding their hopes on Washington. Perhaps maybe it's Oregon now. Colorado, USC is one we're going to look at later. But all these teams have a loss on their resume.
Oregon's probably the best chance they got at this point. I mean, they're a one-loss team, but they're not even breaking into the top 10 at this point, I don't think. So, I mean, I looked at their schedule a few moments ago, too, and I don't think they're really playing anybody worthy to mention that, hey, okay, these guys got to be in for the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
it's going to be very difficult for the Pac-12 to get into the season.
I'm looking at it right now, the top 25 updated. Oregon is the highest Pac-12 team, and they're coming in at number 12. But I feel like even if they win the Pac-12, their non-conference strength of schedule is like 122. That's just not going to cut it when they start looking at resumes. I wouldn't think so. Of course, Notre Dame's going to have a lot to say about this with them not having a conference. But moving on, let's look at Michigan State, Penn State, another Big Ten big matchup.
Yeah, we all got wrong.
We all took Penn State. It was at Beaver Stadium. I'm with you guys. I figured that Michigan State's been kind of up and down this year, but the Sparty was able to get the victory.
I mean, it was definitely not what I expected out of this game. But Michigan State, I think they can surprise you once in a while, and I think it's one of those situations that they got it. Penn State, they haven't really done much since the Ohio State loss.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say Penn State's probably done, though, aren't they? Because I'm looking here at the top 25. Penn State dropped all the way down to 18th, so they dropped 10 spots. Michigan State, even though they beat them, are ranked 24th. Even though Penn State's 4-2 and Michigan State's 4-2, so it's kind of weird how they do the top 25. But I think both of them right now are sitting ducks. Moving on to the last game here we mentioned. I'm sorry, second to last game here. Another Big Ten matchup: Wisconsin versus Michigan. So Wisconsin came in ranked 15th. Michigan came in ranked 12th. Jeremy, you picked the Wolverine, and you were correct.
Yeah, I was just saying where this is like a making a break it for Michigan for Coach Harbaugh, and I seen where they came in and got the job done against Wisconsin. So
Yeah, and we talked about all year that Jim Harbaugh does not have a good record playing against the rival teams like Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State, but he got a victory here, so Michigan's still alive.
Yeah, I think so. They definitely have surprised me this season. They have a good shot at making it into the Big Ten championship at this point, and if they win it, they could very well be looking into a playoff bid here soon.
Yeah, because right now Michigan sits at number 6th overall. But we're kind of knocking teams out here a little bit. Wisconsin 4-2 now. They're pretty much done too, aren't they?
Yeah, right now they gotta be focused on getting to a bowl game.
Yeah, a lot of these teams we've mentioned, there'd have to be a lot of upsets and some things moving around above them for them to be able to get back into the CFP. And then finally, another big Pac-12 matchup: Colorado, who came in ranked
A very late game.
and was undefeated, taking on USC at USC. Of course, we all three had the upset, if you want to call it that. Trojans go home happy.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought that the Trojans, they're a good team overall. Colorado, yeah, they've been playing good, but I think this is their first major test.
It is.
So-
Since Mike McIntyre took over there, Colorado's been a decent squad. This isn't the first time they've been ranked since McIntyre took over the team, but with them going into the Coliseum, I said last week USC just quite frankly is the better team. They have better talent, and I think we saw that. And like you mentioned, a late game Saturday night. I think it started at 10:30.
Yeah, I think I fell asleep right 5 minutes into the first quarter.
Yeah, I couldn't make it to the end of that one. But anyway, so let's take a look at our locked in this week. So I had, who do I have? I had Boise State, and Nevada, which I thought was a little outside of the box. This one could have gone either way. Both teams came in at 3-3 overall. Boise was able to get the victory, which got me 2 points there. Now, locked in, Jeremy. Dun, 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 dun. Auburn, you had Auburn beating Tennessee, and it wasn't meant to be. So. And then finally, Russell, you had, who's that? Virginia Tech over UNC. And actually, UNC played them tough, and that one could have gone either way for an extended period of time during that game. So, upset alert. Russell, both of us got ours right this week for a change. This is the first one I've gotten right. I think this is your second one right so far. But I had the Virginia Cavaliers upsetting number 16 Miami. They did exactly that. Russell, you had that exact same game that Jeremy had for his locked in as your upset alert. Tennessee Volunteers beating the Auburn Tigers. Yep. And then, Jeremy, you had ECU beating Houston. That one didn't go as planned. I'm not even sure what the score was, but I don't think it was close. But,
no, it was not.
Nonetheless, so where are we sitting right now score-wise?
Well, yours truly is on top once again, but only by 1 point. 38 for me, 37 for Matt, and 33 for Jeremy. I picked up 6 points out of this game here, and a lot had to do with beating you over the LSU game. Jeremy, I did better this week, man.
Yeah, got to step it up, man. So, speaking of this week, let's take a look at this week's picks. So, starting out, we've got the Battle of the Michigans. We've got number 6 Michigan heading to Lansing to take on number 24 Michigan State. So, who you guys taking?
Michigan.
Both of them are on. Both of them come off of a win.
Yeah.
And I say Michigan's going to get them another one.
Even at Michigan State, taking the Wolverine.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with him on this one.
I agree. I'm right there with you. I've got what will be another big victory for Harbaugh and the Wolverines. So moving on, we've got a big ACC matchup. NC State, who comes in undefeated. And taking a look at the list here of the top 25, they are up to number 16. They're 5-0. Of course, taking on Clemson, who comes in at number 3, who's also undefeated at 6-0. So who you guys got in this one?
This is a really big game. We've been talking about this one since the preseason.
Yes, we have.
Both of us even had him for upset. I'm sticking with that. NC State over Clemson.
All right.
I'm going with the Tigers. This Trevor Lawrence going to take care of business against State.
I think so, too. You're right, Russell. When we started the season, I kept saying Clemson's going to lose one game along the way. I picked this one to be it. Because NC State always seems to give Clemson trouble for some reason, and B, because after this, Clemson's going to Florida State, and I thought maybe this might be a trap game. However, things have changed. Florida State is not good this year. Again, I don't know what's going on in Tallahassee, so this isn't so much of a trap game anymore. But Trevor Lawrence is a stud. Clemson, I think, just has too many weapons on offense and a stout defense, if not the best in the country. I think Clemson takes care of business on Saturday. Moving on, I got another Pac-12 matchup. Colorado still in the news, taking on the Washington Huskies. So who wins this one?
I'm going to go with Washington on this one. Even though they've got 2 losses in their belt at this point, they're still not a bad team. So I'm going to stick with them on this one here.
All right.
I'm going with the Huskies.
I'm going to take the Huskies, too, because they've got too much offense for Colorado to be able to keep up with. You got a 4-year starter, quarterback in Jake Brown. You got Miles Gaskins and running back. That alone, to me, is enough to take down the Buffalo. Moving forward to a big SEC matchup. Mississippi State coming in ranked, let's see, where are they now? 22nd, taking on LSU, who's all the way up to number 5 now, and it's at the Bayou. So who you got?
I don't think you're going to hear any cowbells ringing in LSU this week. Tigers going to win this one.
All right.
I'm going with the LSU Tigers.
Yeah, I think we're all in accord on this one. Mississippi State's a good squad. Of course, Fitzpatrick's a really good quarterback. LSU, though, is hitting on all cylinders right now.
Yeah.
And then finally, another late game. Of course, that means it's in the Pac-12. Oregon, Washington State. Oregon's all the way up to number 12. I mentioned that earlier. Washington State pops into the top 25 at number 25. Who you got?
I'm going with Oregon Ducks.
Back on the bandwagon, huh?
There you go.
I'm going to go to the Ducks here, too.
I'm taking the Ducks, too, even though this is at Washington State. And I mentioned this several times this year. Washington State right now is in a position. They're 5-1. They creep into the top 25. This is their shot. If they win, they'll keep climbing up. If they lose, they're gone right just that quickly. I think we see that again, and they are out of the top 25 by this time next week. Taking a look at our locked-in picks, I am taking number 20, Cincinnati, to beat the Temple Owls. So Cincy, one of those group of 5 teams nobody's really talking about, but they are one of only just a handful of undefeated teams still left in the country. Mm-hmm. Jeremy, you're taking the Sooners over TCU. That one could be a little tricky, though. We'll have to wait and see on that one. And then you're taking Bama, surprise, over Tennessee.
Tennessee hate week. Hashtag Tennessee hate week for me. So I'm going to have to go Alabama squashed.
All right, well, since we're talking about that, let me ask you this. Tua Tagovailoa got hurt, had a leg injury late in the game this past week. Is that going to be a concern for Bama going forward?
I know he kind of had. I'm not sure what happened exactly. I seen where he actually got injured. They took him to a tent on the sideline there. But his parents came in there and they kind of walked back out kind of quickly. I think they kind of was went in to pray for him. So I don't think it's that terrible
his
for him.
Parents?
Yeah, his parents got to come into the tent.
Why?
I think because they're really religious people and they went in to pray with them.
All right.
But anyways, they came back out rather quickly. So I don't think it's that bad of a thing here. So
yeah.
I think he'll be back in action, if not this week, next week. And Jalen Hurts is going to be good enough to help
That's
him out.
the thing. I mean, your backup is All-American quarterback, so I don't think it'll be that much of an issue. Just my opinion here, though. I'd be a little embarrassed if my parents came into the tent with me. I don't care. I don't care if it's to pray or not. I'm like, dude, I'm an adult. Like, get out of here, Mom. Get out of here, Dad.
We'll see you after the game.
Yeah, pray for me up in the stands if you really want to do that. Anyway, moving forward, upset alerts. I've got the Tar Heels getting their second victory this year over the Syracuse Orange.
Woo!
We'll see. It's in the Carrier Dome, so we'll see if they're able to pick up that win. Jeremy, you've got the Indiana Hoosiers taking on Penn State. You've got the Hoosiers upsetting Penn State, kind of reeling right now, so that one definitely could happen. And then, Russell, you have Wake Forest over Florida State. Is that really an upset?
It had a 25% chance.
Perhaps by the numbers. Is that in Tallahassee?
By the numbers, yes, in Tallahassee. That might be what it is.
All right. So stick here next week. We'll find out how much in the lead I have taken over by that point. Now, who are your big men on campus? Who impressed you the most stat-wise this week?
I got Washington State's quarterback Gardner Minshew. Had a great game against Oregon State. Had threw for 430 yards with 5 touchdowns.
That's big man on campus there. What about you, Russell?
I'm going to go to the quarterback of Joe Burrow from LSU. I thought they had such a great game. And he didn't get a touchdown, but he did put some good numbers up, and it helped his team out get into the victory. So I'm going to go with that.
Absolutely. Got him all the way up to number 5. And me, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to get a guy on defense this week because we don't ever put a big man on campus from defense. Juan Thornhill, defensive back from Virginia, had 6 tackles, 2 picks, 86 return yards in that upset win over number 16 Miami. So my upset alert came true. I had to give somebody some love on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to be doing this for the rest of the year because in 2 weeks, the first official CFP rankings will come out. So as we sit right now, if the college season ended right now, Russell, who's in your top 4?
Well, obviously number 1 is Alabama.
Okay.
Number 2, I have Ohio State. Number 3 will be Clemson. Number 4, I've got LSU in there.
Okay.
And my bottom 2 on the outside looking in, Notre Dame at 5 and Georgia at 6.
Okay. What about you, Jeremy?
I got for my top 4 is going to be Alabama. Number 2 is Clemson. 3, LSU. Number 4 is Georgia. And for my honorable mention, it's going to be Ohio State and Notre Dame.
What is going on here? You got 3 SEC teams in the top 4.
Hey, it can happen.
Why? All right, let me ask you guys this: why no love for Notre Dame?
They're not in the conference.
So what? They're undefeated.
They might be, but who have they really played?
They
who-
really had an easy schedule.
Who has Alabama
they-
played?
They played some decent teams.
Who? Who have they beat that's better than the teams Notre Dame's beat? Notre Dame beat Michigan already. Michigan's ranked 6th right now. That
I don't know,
alone should be
they
enough.
just haven't impressed me enough. So.
Yeah, not to get to the top 4.
Wow, you guys are homers.
They're going to need more than the look at the Irish.
All right, so right now I've got Bama 1. I don't think we can argue about that. Number 2, we have all got, actually you got Clemson 2. I've got Ohio State coming in at 2. That win over Penn State's the biggest, although that's starting to drop in my book a little bit. Number 3, I've got the Clemson Tigers. I've got Notre Dame at 4, and I know they don't play in a conference, but undefeated is undefeated. And if they stay undefeated, whether they play a conference championship or not, you put them in. The only way that not being in a conference hurts them is if they lose a game. And the only reason that'll hurt them is because they won't have a conference championship to potentially play in and win to make up the points. And then my 5 and 6 on the outside looking in, I got LSU 5. I've got Central Florida at 6.
All right.
And I'll tell you why.
Respect.
Because Central Florida also undefeated. I know that they just barely beat a really good Memphis team, but they beat them by 1 point nonetheless. UCF needs to get some love because I'm looking at the top 25. UCF is number 10 this week. They were number 10 last week. So Oklahoma jumped them, Texas jumped them, Michigan jumped them, LSU jumped them, and they all have 1 loss. Please give UCF some freaking love, man.
Yeah.
So that's who I've got in my top 4 and my 2 on the outside looking in. So that's going to do it for college football talk. We're going to take another quick commercial break, come back and bump up to one more level and talk about the NFL and much more when we come back to the RO Sports Show.
At Kyocera, we see your company differently. We see your documents, how they're accessed, what it takes to keep them secure, and how well your workflow is flowing.
Kyocera helps your entire document infrastructure run more efficiently, securely, and cost-effectively.
And what we see is an opportunity to integrate all of it.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And it's bragging time, Jeremy, because my Washington Redskins, right here, that little guy, beat your Carolina Panthers 23-17. So it's smack talking time. So let me start with this. On the Panthers side of things, what happened Sunday?
I think one of the things that I was really upset about on the offensive side of the ball, where for one, DJ Moore fumble after a catch was given to him by Cam Newton, which that was returned for a touchdown, and also was another fumble that took place with Christian McCaffrey fumble and Washington recovered. And the good thing about it was, for one, we did try to capitalize, try to make a comeback, but let's be real, Cam Newton. Let's be real. You my quarterback, and I love you, man. If you got 4 downs. Why try to go for the win when you had 4 opportunities to go to get a first down and you had 2 timeouts remaining? I don't understand that.
Turnovers for the Panthers was obviously one of the big deals, because especially in NFL, would y'all have at least 2 turnovers that I remember, like you said, a pick and a fumble. The Skins jumped out 14-0 in the first. They kind of never looked back. Of course, Josh Norman, my man, y'all's former man, had a pick on Newton. He also did forced that fumble that you were talking about. As far as on the Panthers side, look, Alex Smith, he had an okay game. He was 21-36. He only threw for 163 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Newton, on the other hand, he threw the ball 40 times Sunday. Now, he completed 27 of those, and he had 2 touchdowns, but he had that pick. But the numbers that stick out to me is rushing, because Cam led y'all's team in rushing with 43 yards. That can't happen, can it?
No, because for me, like, we brought in C.J. Anderson, and we got Christian McCaffrey for our backs. Why you would run your quarterback and pretty much risk him an injury, while you can use a 1-2 punch scheme to, break down the defense.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the numbers here. McCaffrey only had 20 yards rushing. He only carried the ball 8 times, though. Like, you got to do better on that side of the ball, right?
Yeah.
And then third in y'all's rushing was running back DJ Moore, who had 1 rush for 18 yards. So C.J. Anderson not even on the list.
And we're paying C.J. Anderson all this money, which I made a case early in the season, which I said, one, C.J. Anderson needed to be the starter. Let him be the ground and pound, and let Christian McCaffrey be your scat back for Wildcat and shotgun formation.
Be your thunder and your lightning, so to speak.
Yeah.
On the other side of the ball, Washington, Peterson, continuing his pretty good season, had 17 carries for 97 yards, so just 3 short of 100 yards. Didn't have any touchdowns, but nonetheless, wasn't a whole lot of receiving going on. Devin Funchess led y'all's team with 5 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown. That's a pretty good game. As for the Redskins, our tight end, Vernon Davis, led us with 48 yards and a touchdown. So, but I'm looking here. Alex Smith really spread the ball out. I mean, there's probably 10 guys here that touched the ball throwing-wise. But as far as the game, what are the Panthers are now 3-2. The Redskins are 3-2. The Redskins are in first place. Our division's not nearly as tough as the South is. What do the Panthers need to do now to make sure they don't miss the playoffs?
I think one of the things that we have to work on is our defense, especially with our run production, because we was terrible on defense. Had trouble stopping the run. Also, we couldn't get anything, no turnovers whatsoever to create them to get back on offense. And even to the degree where on the offensive side of the ball, I think one of the things that we should be doing is run the ball more, which we are always good to do that run first offense and play good defense. And I think that's where North Turner and Ron Rivera need to get back into in order for the Panthers to continue their success.
And then as far as the Redskins, this was a huge victory for us because I said last week, I actually picked the Panthers to win this game. I don't know if you remember that or not. But this was a scenario where I was afraid we would have another season where we go 7-9, 8-8, maybe 9-7. Mm-hmm. Perhaps this could be a springboard for us in the future to pick up a few more wins and march our way towards the playoffs. Now, we're going to preview the Panthers and the Redskins games coming up this coming week. But in the meantime, we also had a couple other games that we previewed last week. One was the Chargers versus the Browns, who the Browns came in at 2-1. The Chargers came in at 3-2. Chargers ended up getting the victory 38-14. Now, the Browns, not the worst team in the league anymore, are they?
No, it is you could say for the Cleveland Browns, they the most, if there was an award go out at the ESPYs at the end of the season,
right,
that L goes to the Cleveland Browns because I'm congratulating Hugh Jackson and the ownership of the Browns for what they are doing for this big turnaround, especially with how his Baker Mayfield, who come in, is playing well after Tyrann Taylor getting hurt, and pretty much the offense is clicking all cylinders, playing under his leadership. Defense is being very competitive right now.
So Mayfield, he had 1 touchdown, he had 2 picks, so not his best game. But nonetheless, is Baker finally the answer to the quarterback position for the Cleveland?
Yeah, I think he is, because as long as he continues to do what he do and the offense clicking with him, I think they'll do well. But I always say you need a veteran backup to tutor him.
Yeah. And then on the Chargers side, Phillip Rivers, he never seems to age. He had 2 touchdowns to Tyrell Williams. Melvin Gordon, though, absolutely killed it for the Chargers. He had 3 touchdowns, 132 yards rushing, so that obviously was the difference for that game. And then, of course, our other big game this week was the Sunday night matchup. The New England Patriots taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs finally got a loss. They're now 5-1. The Pats 4-2. Pats ended up winning 43-40. And I mentioned last week we were doing predictions, and I took the Pats to win because I said, look, this is the Chiefs' awakening moment where they realize we're a good team, but Tom Brady's going to do his thing, and you're going to see what a championship team looks like. And that's pretty much what we saw, right?
Yeah, and I think this is where the battle of the quarterbacks, and possibly you could see this in the AFC title game as that comes to play again.
Absolutely.
And I think Mahomes did a pretty good job spreading out the offense. Had a good game, but as push comes to shove, I think New England was the better team, and Tom Brady commanded, did what he had to do, got the victory.
This was basically a whoever scores last wins. Yeah. Mahomes was 23 of 36, 352 yards, 4 touchdowns, had 2 picks, though. Most of that was to Tyreek Hill, who had 7 receptions for 142 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then on the other side, Tom Brady did his thing. He was 24 of 35, 340 yards, 1 touchdown. Sony Michel running the ball, former Georgia Bulldog, had 106 yards on 24 carries, 2 touchdowns as well. So Isn't that, talking about the Panthers, isn't that what you want from your back? A guy that's going to carry the ball 20, 25 times?
Yeah, and that's what we drafted Christian McCaffrey for in the first round last year, to be that future back with us, even when you could brought in C.J. Anderson from the Broncos, who pretty much supposed to be that third down back. But it seemed to me, it's like, I don't know what North Turner is doing as far as with offense, but it's going to come a time where, hey, swallow your pride, North Turner.
Yeah.
Start running the ball if you want to have success.
And I agree with you. Pats Chiefs could very easily be the AFC Championship game this year. Just because the Chiefs lost, they're still a really good team, just clicking on cylinders, especially on offense. Now, let's take a look at some games for this upcoming week. Panthers, you guys are heading to Philly to take on the Eagles, who are 3-3. That's going to be at 1 p.m. on Sunday. What do you expect to see that day?
I see this. It's going to be like for the Panthers and Philly. This is going to be a make-it-break-it game for both teams.
Yeah.
And I think this is where it's going to be a redemption where Carolina got to get this win because, for one, they got to take advantage of it because they lost to the Redskins. And for me is they got to start running the ball. This is about playoff time. Playoff scenarios coming up. You got to start running the ball, and you got to continue to do what you've been doing against the Patriots, even with the Cowboys, even with the Giants, what you did. Defense got to keep, you got to be consistent. You cannot. Pretty much the penalties killed us. For one, and Luke pretty much, to me, mentally he did not have his best game because even though he dominated tackles, whatever, it's time for Luke to be Luke. The D-line got to take care of business. Even with your secondary is doing an excellent job this year, I think you got to be better with coverage.
All right. And, so I keep thinking, the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. It seems like they kind of have a Super Bowl hangover. So I keep waiting for them to wake up and start winning some games. I don't know if it's going to start this week or not. But coming up for the Skins, perhaps the biggest matchup of the year, rivalry-wise, the Dallas Cowboys are coming to town. They're coming in at 3-3. Skins 3-2. That's going to be at 4:25 on Sunday. Go ahead.
I want for all the people in the world, even in Richmond County, who are Washington Redskins fans, including my dad, who is a diehard one. For the love of God, please beat those Cowboys.
Yeah. And I would, if you'd asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have said Skins should have no problem. But the Cowboys just absolutely dominated Jacksonville, beat them, put 40 points up
I know.
on what I thought was a pretty good Jaguars defense.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence came out and played an all-pro game with 3 sacks.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, obviously, when it comes to a rivalry game like this, we always say it, you can throw the records out the window, so you never know what's going to happen. But still, I think us being at home is going to be the difference in this one.
I'm going for Washington for this. That'd be my prediction.
Even if Dallas was undefeated, I just don't know if I could take them and feel good about it. No. And then finally, our game of the week this week, the 4-1 Saints are heading to Baltimore to take on the 4-2 Ravens. That's going to be at 4:05 on Sunday. Who are you taking in this one?
I really want the Ravens to get this win on.
I know you want them to because the Saints are in your division. But
yeah.
Who do you think's going to win, though?
For me personally, I think the Saints going to get this win because Drew Brees, a lot of people y'all don't know, he already broke the record for most passing yards, but I think he got another record that's coming where if he gets 1 or 2 more touchdowns left, he'll be the all-time passing yards leader.
I do want to say this. I am very interested in this matchup. Because you've got the Saints offense that's like high-powered year after year with Drew Brees there.
Pretty much they got the number 1 offense, and you got the Ravens, who is probably the number 2.
I was going to say, but then you got the Ravens' stellar defense, who had 11 sacks this past Sunday against the Titans in a 21-0 shutout. Yeah. So I'll be interested to see. It's kind of like, 2 head-to-head like that.
Just like a Ali and George Foreman type.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see who's going to come out, whether it's going to be high-powered offense or stellar defense. I'm still going to take Drew Brees and the Saints to get to 5-1. Now, to finish out the NFL segment here, I want to play a quick game of fact or fiction.
All right.
So, fact or fiction, Minnesota Vikings' Adam Thielen is the best wide receiver in the NFL right now.
Yes.
Yeah, right now.
Fact.
All right, yeah, I was looking at his numbers. He's already got 738 passing yards right now, or receiving yards rather. He's on pace for like 150 receiving or receptions.
Yeah.
That's astronomical. Now, obviously, he's not going to get to that, but still, I agree with you. Right now, he's the best receiver in the NFL.
Kirk Cousins got somebody to throw it to.
Yes, he does. Fact or fiction, the Jags should trade for a quarterback or sign Colin Kaepernick.
I'm going to say fiction.
All right. So what, they should just stick with Bortles then?
I think they should stick with Bortles stick with Bortles for the time being and go back what you did last year. Run the ball, play good defense.
I would agree with that, although Fournette's still hurt.
Yes.
So that hurts you a little bit. You still got Yeldon, though.
Yeah, you got Yeldon. You just picked up Jamal Charles to pretty much back up Yeldon. I think you need to start running the ball and pretty much play defense, what the case may be. But Jaguars got to be consistent.
And Fournette's got a hamstring injury,
Yes.
which it can linger all year long. You never really know what you're going to get with that. But the name that I've seen that they should trade for is Eli Manning. Do I think the Jaguars should do that? Absolutely not. Eli
No.
Manning is terrible. It's time for him to retire. I'm sorry. I know he's got Super Bowl victories, but that was 50 years ago, it seems like.
Yeah.
Signing Kaepernick, though, I feel like that could potentially be a good move. And I know you've got the circus that comes around him. I get all that, all the media attention. But if you're trying to win football games, and that's what we're all trying to do here in the NFL, don't you want the best guy to be under center? And I don't know about you, but I think right now Kaepernick is a better quarterback than Blake Bortles.
Yes, you know what, and I said this even in the beginning of the NFL season. I think this is going to be a scenario where Kaepernick is going to get picked up this year because it's going to come where owners, GMs going to have to swallow their pride, regardless what's going outside the field in the media, what he's doing. But at the same time, you can't take away his numbers, what he had done when he was in San Francisco. Take him to a Super Bowl, even though they lost. But at the same time, probably the highest quarterback on the market. But at the same time, one of those teams, out of these 32 teams, somebody going to pick him up before this year's over.
Yeah, and I've said it several times. Out of the 32 teams in the NFL, he's better than at least half of the starting quarterbacks. So, owners, I'm with you. They need to swallow their pride and make a call to Kaepernick's agent.
Give him a one year veterans minimum.
Yeah, just let him try out, kind of. And then finally, fact or fiction? The Chiefs are still the best team in the AFC.
At this moment, yes. Fact.
Even though they just lost to New England.
Yes, fact.
I'm agree with you. Even though they just lost.
That loss don't mean a thing. They can still dominate.
And that was in New England too.
Yes.
So that had a lot to do with it too. But I agree with you. Until like the Chiefs playing the Pats was kind of like the dividing line, if you will.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how you can see how good you're doing, something you can compare it to. I think even with the numbers the Chiefs are putting up, they scored 40. They very easily could have won this game on the road in a tough environment. To me, Chiefs still the best team in the AFC. Of course, that all could change.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see as we continue to move forward through the NFL season. And of course, the Aura Sports Show will keep you updated on the Panthers, the Redskins, and every other team in the NFL and all the big news that come with it. So we're going to take one more quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to hit the NASCAR circuit. Russell's going to join me back on the desk and take a look at the Talladega recap. Look forward to Kansas. Plus, we've got Love It or Hate It, Hot or Not, so much more when we come back to the Aura Sports Show.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
Welcome back to the Aura Sports Show. As always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Time to hit the track. Russell Parker back on the desk. And Talladega, do we see the big one? I think that's what everybody wants to know.
We really kind of didn't. I mean, I guess the biggest one was a couple cars towards the end of it. They actually got together and wrecked a little bit, but it wasn't really what you expect from a Talladega race in terms of what you would consider a big one. Not a whole line of cars at the end of the race.
Yeah.
We did have a caution at the end of it. NASCAR actually did not throw the caution itself, though, on the final lap, which I was surprised by that. Usually they do that. As soon as the car is wrecked, they throw out a caution. That's the end of the race. But not a big old race all the way to the end of it. And Eric Almirola ended up winning. His teammates, Allsort-Haas, Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, and Kurt Busch, all four of those guys, I've never seen someone more dominant than Stewart-Haas Racing this past Sunday. They had a strategy, and it worked so well for them this past week. All four of them stayed up in the top four until they started running out of gas at the end of it.
So I'm looking at the top 10 from Talladega, and after we've seen Harvick, Truex, Busch Keselowski dominate all year long, I'm like, who are these people? Because it's Almirola 1, Clint Boyer 2, Ricky Stenhouse 3, Denny Hamlin 4, your man Logano, Allmendinger, of course Jimmy Johnson in there, but he's done already, Eric Jones. I mean, it's like kind of the not so much the who's who of NASCAR. I mean, what
Yeah.
happened to the big three?
Harvick was up there and he ran out of gas leading into the final restart of the race. He had to pull off as many of them did. Clint Bowyer, he's been doing well. Chase Elliott, of course, won last week at Dover. Now we got Eric Almirola winning. That's going to help his team out because he moves on to the next round. He doesn't have to worry about Kansas. He probably would have if he not won. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. And actually, looking at the standings, Truex is actually on the cut line right now of the playoffs.
Who would have thought that?
It's really insane how the playoffs have turned everything over, and it's just wild.
Absolutely. And right outside the top 10 is at 11 was Kyle Larson finishing there. Of course, he had a little bit of a hiccup after the race, right?
Yeah, so he got issued an L1 penalty. He used some other type of mechanism to... he got involved in a wreck, and his team used some kind of different mechanism to keep parts on his car instead of what's allowed by NASCAR. So they docked him 10 driver points. Chip Ganassi lost 10 arm points. So that puts him now 36 points below the cut line rather than 26, making it even more tougher for him to move on after Kansas.
I was going to say, so that obviously puts him in even bigger of a hole. So looking at the playoff standings, who's moving on right now? Do we know if anybody's out yet?
Well, obviously, Eric Almirola and Chase Elliott are going to get the move on. Right now, Harvick and Kyle Busch are probably the most safest drivers right now. You could even include Joey Logano in that. He's only 39 points above the cut line. I think he can very well be fine. It's just a matter of not getting into trouble, keeping your car clean all race. Guys like, I would even say Kurt Busch, who's 30 points above the cut line, all the way down to Ryan Blaney, who's 22 points above the cut line. That's going to be the race you're going to be watching mostly for the entirety of that race, which is a 400-mile race on a 1.5-mile track. Truex, again, 18 points above the cut line of Brad Keselowski. That can very well change very easily. I mean, we're going to a 1.5-mile track, which I think Truex has the favorite to win this race. But he's got to play with the likes of Kyle Busch again, Clint Bowyer, this is his home track, and even Brad Keselowski, and even Kyle Larson can have a potential to win this race. I think it's going to be very difficult, and I'm going to be watching Truex very closely this Sunday.
So you obviously follow NASCAR much more closer than I do, but just as a casual outside viewer, I know that Truex has dominated pretty much all year long. Keselowski has too for the most part. So I look at this and I'm like, they've won a lot of races. How is it that they're right on the cut line? To me, it seems like a whole year wasted.
Well, the playoffs, after each stage or after each round, the points reset.
Right.
You get a certain amount of points allotted to you at the beginning of the season, or not at the beginning of the playoffs. But the stage points the playoff points that you picked up throughout the rest of the season, excuse me, which would come from wins and from stage wins, those add on and they stay with you throughout the entire playoffs until the championship 4. It just so happens that this round has been really bad for those drivers, and it's just not helped out. And guys who are winning these races are just pushing them down. Had Eric Almirola and Chase Elliott not won, they might be on the bottom here. Eric Almirola, like I said a minute ago, he might not be looking at the inside had he not won at Talladega.
Right. So I'm looking at the bottom here. Alex Bowman is, 68 points under the cut line. He's probably going to be the first to go, right?
I think so for sure. I hate to say that because Alex Bowman's a great driver. He's driving the 88 car, which was taken before by Dale Earnhardt Jr.
I think it's safe to say at this point they're all great drivers, right?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. This is the best in the world. But Kyle Larson, I think he's got a good chance to win this race. I think he's kind of in a situation where he needs to win. There's scenarios already been played out by many people who've nitpick every single thing. But all these drivers from Keselowski all the way down to kind of need a win. But Truex can very well get it 3 points. He needs to get 38 points accumulated throughout the race to make him go. And it used to, before the stages, you could the stage race that came in, you could go and say, okay, you need to get to this position in order to be safe.
Right.
But with the stages now, where you can earn up to 10 points, depending on if you win a stage or not, that can kind of throw things off now. So you got to race good all day long up in the top 10.
So they're doing it similar to what we saw at the Roval, where there's a first stage race and a second stage race. So that's kind of the new norm
race,
now.
Yep.
Okay. And just before we move on, Alex Bowman, he'd basically have to win at Kansas in order to move on at this point, right?
And I just don't think that's going to happen.
All right. So let's take a look at moving forward. What do you expect to see from Kansas Speedway?
Like I said, I think Truex, Larson, Keselowski, Busch, I think those are going to be your four to look out for this race. I mean, Harvick might be in that mix too. I think it's safe to go ahead and throw him in there. And if I'm going to pick somebody not out of the Cup, if I'm going to make a reasonable prediction here, I'm going to go with Truex on this one. I just think he can dominate here. I'm going to have to keep an eye on my guy Logano, though, because he's won here in the past. Created some controversy here a couple of years ago as well with Matt Kenseth. But, I think this is going to be a Truex race to win or lose and potentially lose the playoffs.
By the way, before we make picks out of the Cup, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Casey Kane retire this week?
Yeah, he is retiring. I don't think it was this week. I think he announced it this past week. But yeah, he's suffered some illness, and it's kind of just thrown him off so badly now. He's been missed. He's supposed to be racing right now with the 95 car with Levine Following Racing, but he actually is not going to be able to continue on with a lot of issues.
So Casey Kane, I know who that is, being a casual viewer. Is he eventually maybe get into the Hall of Fame or no?
I think he definitely should. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, my mind's a little off right now on it, but I think he was actually the youngest driver or the first rookie to win an All-Star race.
Okay.
So that's pretty big. And he did so well in that 9 car when he drove for it, and he done some good things over at Hendrick in the 5 car as well. But he definitely put Dodge. I think he was one of the few who put Dodge on the map in NASCAR itself. So
all right,
yeah,
there you go. All right, so before we take another commercial break, let's make some picks out of the Cup.
All
You want to go first?
I'll go first this
right.
time. Let's see what we got here. Go.
You got 2 there.
I got this one.
All right. Now, while you're doing that,
Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch. All right, I'm going to pick for Jeremy because he's not on the desk. So this is going to be Jeremy's pick for Sunday. Jeremy has Alex Bowman.
Well.
So Alex has to win or he's probably out. And then for my pick, I am going to take Chase Elliott.
Not bad. Not
so
bad.
Chase Elliott won not too long ago. So we'll have to wait and see who's right on those. But Kyle Busch, that might be a good pick out of the Cup or not, right?
I think so, yeah, definitely. And Chase Elliott, I would say throw him in there. I've been kind of throwing him under the radar a little bit now, but I think that kid's going to be something special here in a couple of years.
So you're taking Truex away from the Cup.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of taken a liking to Brad Keselowski a little bit. So besides the Cup, I think I might take the number 2 Miller Lite car.
Speaking of the Cup, the past 2 races, I
know.
predicted that right.
I know. So Kyle, expect a victory this Sunday at Kansas Speedway. So that's going to do it for NASCAR coverage. Of course, we'll come back next week just like we do with every other sport, let you know how it turned out. We're going to take our last commercial break, come back, do Hot or Not, reveal our official athletes of the week, and of course, love it or hate it right after this. Welcome back to the final segment of the RO Sports Show, which is, as always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And to finish out the show, let's start with our Hot or Not, brought to you by HCI Fire and Water Restoration. Russell, who you got hot this week?
My hot is Haley Miller from the Lady Raider golf team. She has made it into the 4A state golf championship, and I think that's huge. Obviously she's been on a roll this season, and she's going to carry that momentum into the playoffs.
All right.
My high is Houston Texans safety Andre Hall returns to practice after his cancer is in remission. I think that's very inspirational to the team, and I'm glad to see his teammates pretty much like to see him back in a full go this Sunday coming.
All right, I'm going to skip myself till the end here. Who'd you got for not this week, Russell?
All right, so my not is actually going to be Kyle Larson. The past 3 weeks, he has had terrible issues. Every time race, a wreck here, a wreck there. It's been terrible for him and getting docked points. So terrible, not.
Okay.
Sorry for your Holtz fans and your alumni out of Hope County High School out of Rayford. Y'all have not won a game in 2 years. Y'all need to do something in order to get a win, okay?
Yeah, that's about as cold as it gets. My hot for this week are the Utah Jazz and the LA Clippers. And I know it's preseason, but they both went 5-0 in the NBA preseason. On the other flip of the coin, my not for this week are the New Orleans Pelicans, who didn't win a single game in the preseason. They went 0-5, which brings me to this. My man Jeremy and I, if you tune in, 5:30 this Friday, we're doing a Raw special NBA opening season report, if you will. We're going to talk about everything going on in the NBA, who we think is going to win the MVP, who we think is going to be in the playoffs, who we think is going to beat the Warriors, maybe. So make sure to tune into that across all of the Richmond Observer platforms. Again, that's Friday at 5:30. I had to get a shameless plug in there.
There you go.
Now, real quick, in the middle here, I want to shout out to our official Richmond County Athletes of the Week. On the female side, we have Allison Leggett, a sophomore with the Richmond Raiders cross country team. And then for the male side, we've got Carson Jordan, another sophomore, also on the Richmond Raiders cross country team. So congratulations to both Carson Jordan and Allison Leggett, our official Richmond County Athletes of the Week. And let's finish it up same way we always do with love it or hate it. So let's start with basketball. Richard Jefferson retires from the NBA after 17 seasons. Love it or hate it?
I love it. Great career with the Nets and with the Spurs. Cleveland got a ring out of it, man. Enjoy your retirement.
All right.
I'm going to say love it.
Love it too. He's, like you said, he has a great career. Hall of Famer, maybe?
Probably Ring of Honor, probably with the Nets or probably with the Spurs. But
yeah, I think he's right there on the edge. Of course, Richard Jefferson also runs a pretty successful podcast, so I look to enjoying that in the future when he'll have more time to do that. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fired defensive coordinator Mike Smith. The Bucs were giving up 439.8 yards per game, 34.6 points per game, and were giving up 356 passing yards per game. So the Bucs firing their DC. Love it or hate it?
I love it because you got too much talent on that defensive side not to have a good coordinator. You need to find somebody who's more pretty much defensive minded savvy. I can see a Lovely Smith or maybe a Rex Ryan type.
All right, two good names to pull. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to say love it. Find somebody new that ain't working for you.
Yeah, I mean, once I read those numbers, I was like, yeah, the guy should be fired. Love it for the Buccaneers. Like you said, go find somebody that can put up some better numbers on defense. The Kansas City Chiefs, Breland Speaks, says he let Tom Brady score a touchdown because he was afraid of getting a penalty. Love it or hate it?
I'm going to say hate it. I mean, if that penalty allows you to keep from him scoring, go for it.
All right.
I'm going to say hate it for that.
I'm going to say hate it simply because, look, you knock the guy out. I don't care if it's Tom Brady or whoever it is. If you get a penalty, you get a penalty. You just find out about that later on. But I think that this speaks volumes to how ticky-tacky they've been with fouls this year, with penalty flags in the NFL, to where now guys are afraid to tackle guys. That's a problem, something they need to fix for the future. Boxer Deontay Wilder, who was 40-0, has 39 knockouts, has been compared to Mike Tyson, punches an ESPN mascot on Sports Nation, the Spanish version, and accidentally shatters his jaw. Love it or hate it?
I love it. That kind of hurts. It's funny, but it hurts his jaw because you got to get that restructured.
I'm sure it hurt.
I'm going to say hate it because I feel bad for the guy.
I love it because, first of all, I saw this and it was funny to watch, and I guarantee it hurt like hell. But the guy was willingly letting him punch him in the face. Mascot mask or no, you should have known he was going to hit you hard, so you get what you deserve.
Oh, yeah.
Jamal Crawford agrees to a one-year deal with the Phoenix Suns. Love it or hate it?
Love it. Best six man in the league. Go for it and win another one.
All right.
Love it.
I love it too. It's for $2.4 million, which in the NBA today is not much money. Have at it. The Atlanta Braves gave their manager, Brian Snitker, a 2-year contract extension. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
I'm going to say love it. I think they had a great season this year. I think that's pretty well deserved.
He's saying that, he put that in because he's a Braves fan.
Well, I am. But they did. They went 90-72.
Yeah, that's good.
One of the best seasons in a while.
Yeah, Snitker has been with these guys. He used to be the minor league manager, so all the guys that are young that are coming up now, he's already coached them, so he's familiar with them. Didn't realize this till I was doing some research. He's 62 years old. He spent 42 of those years in the Braves organization. So, 2-year contract extension, I am good with that. Now, Joey Bosa, of course, the dynamic defensive end for Ohio State, has left school to rehab an injury and get ready for the NFL draft. Love it or hate it?
Love it. Get ready.
All right.
Love it.
I hate it. You're in school for a reason. You shouldn't be able to just leave and go to the draft. But I will say this.
His brother played for the Chargers.
This just goes to the narrative that I've been saying for a year now, that the NCAA is just a business. These guys only go to school to play football. It's not to get an education. And to me, this just cements that, right?
At the same time, though, I mean, these guys, they have to go through the education. And they don't, I mean...
If he's able to just leave school willy-nilly and focus on the draft, and yes, he will get drafted probably in the top 5 either way. But it just, I don't understand. Like, what's the point in going to school at this point?
Yeah, especially if you
That's
get.
what I'm saying. He went to school to go to play football, not to
I get
worry
that.
about English or math.
Right, but doesn't that defeat the purpose of what the NCAA is always trying to say, that it's it's student athletes? No, it's not. They ain't student. There's nothing student about this.
No.
You know. All right. Anyway, and then finally, the SEC fined LSU $100,000 for fans on the field after the Georgia win. Love it or hate it.
I'm gonna say love on this one. Stay classy, LSU.
I say love it because hey, at least the fans get to enjoy their win over Georgia.
Yeah, and LSU has to pick up the bill. But
It's all right.
I'm going to say hate it because, look, man, you beat the number 2 team in the nation. If you want to go on the field and celebrate, you should be able to do that without having to write a $100,000 check.
Let me give you a little history lesson here. Back when Auburn beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl a couple years ago, Auburn fans rushed the stadium too, and I understand why they wanted to do it, but a goalpost got torn down from it, and people got injured from that.
Okay, fine, I'll give you that. Just don't tear the goalpost down. If you should be able to run on the field if you upset a team. Now, if LSU had beat Vanderbilt, then no, you don't rush the state, you don't rush the field. But in a situation like this where you beat the number 2 team in the nation, I think you should be able to celebrate without having to worry about writing a check that big.
Yeah.
That's just me, though. So, anyway, that's going to do it for Love It or Hate It, and that's also going to do it for this edition of the RO Sports Show. We appreciate everybody for watching and listening. It was a long one, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, so many ways to watch and listen, so many to mention. Classic Rock, if you want to listen. Of course, the RO app, the Richmond Observer's YouTube page, the Ross Facebook page, the Ross... I can't even keep track of all of them. And how much does it cost?
It's all free.
Exactly. So for Russell Parker, Jeremy McKenzie, I am Matt Harrelson. We'll see everybody right back here next Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Have a great week.